But if you're looking to really rank France in terms of the list of the most unfaithful countries in the world, you're not going to find them at number 1. Salut YouTube! In today's video I'm going to tackle something that I've wanted to talk about for a while now, which is the cliche that French people cheat more often on their partners or are more likely to have mistresses and secret liaisons more than most other cultures. This is a little bit of a sensitive topic. You're talking about cheating, you're talking about infidelity, lies, deception, and culturally these things have different definitions and they have different meanings and they have different levels of importance from one culture to another. I've heard things like, well, you know why they have 1 hour lunch breaks, don't you? It's so the men can go off and visit their mistress during the lunch break. Or did you know in French there's a saying which is cinq, sept, and it's referring to 5 p.m. to 7 p.m, which is the hour of the day where men go to visit their mistresses. Or there was my own personal example when I was doing long distance with a French guy, and I had so many comments like, long distance with a Frenchman? Good luck with that! But it is actually really hard to pinpoint where this particular cliche came from. Maybe it was the kings and all of their countless mistresses that they had, but I find it a bit hard to believe because I'm pretty sure that every king in the course of history has always had their little bit on the side. Maybe it's because Paris is such a symbol of romance and love and seduction, and we kind of just make the link subconsciously. Or don't we just all love it when a cliche becomes a reality and it kind of gets proven? I think we can all remember when the French president François Hollande was caught scooting off to see his mistress in the middle of the night. So obviously the media outlets just lapped it up. I've been doing some research to try and figure out how much truth there is in this cliche. Do Frenchmen really all have mistresses on the side? Well, let's have a look at the facts. So, in Joe Piazza's book, How to Be Married, where there's a whole chapter dedicated to French attitudes around marriage and coupled life, she did find that 47% of French people deem it morally unacceptable to have an affair in a marriage, compared to 84% of Americans. So there is a difference in attitude, but if you're looking to really rank France in terms of the list of the most unfaithful countries in the world, you're not going to find them at number 1. According to a global Durex and Statista study, who investigated the levels of unfaithfulness or amount of people in any given nation to admit that they've cheated on a partner in the past or on their current partner, the number 1 most unfaithful country is Thailand. Closely following, you've got Denmark on 46%. Third equal goes to both Italy and Germany on 45%. And then coming in 4th place, you've got La France on 43%. What I find quite interesting is that there's such a cliche about the French in particular. If we're actually looking at the rankings, why don't we say, oh, those Germans, you know how it is, or can't trust the men in Denmark, can you? While some studies do vary, so you've got some studies saying, look, France is absolutely no different at all to Italy, Spain. I mean, there's many countries in Europe that have around about the same level of cheating, of infidelity. What they all tend to point to is the fact that the French are just a little bit more tolerant and open-minded around the concept of cheating. So this is taking me on to my next point, which is that in France, I think there's just a different cultural approach and attitude to cheating, which maybe fuels some of the stereotypes that we have about French people. Cheating isn't such a taboo topic. It can be spoken about more, it can be debated more, it can be discussed more here, and it's less of an all or nothing concept than what we're maybe used to in more Anglo-Saxon cultures. I think there's just a less conventional and uptight kind of approach to sex and relationships in general over here, and so it translates that there's a less uptight approach to things like cheating as well. Some of these signs can be a lot more visible, like for example the fact that at dinner parties, people in relationships with their significant other beside them may have been a little bit flirtatious. Over here that can be kind of seen as a way to have fun, and it's not necessarily a betrayal and cheating and you know, a gateway to extramarital sex. Another more visible thing that you can sometimes see in France is that there'll be advertising concerning mistresses. So on Valentine's Day, I mean, it's a little bit of a joke, of course, but I'm sure this would never happen in the US. There'll be an ad from a jeweler, and there'll be, you know, jewelry like a nice necklace, and it will say buy one and get one free. Don't forget your mistress this Valentine's Day. And another quite visible thing is that, you know, sometimes we see the French attitude towards cheating and we're just like, why don't they care? I mean, a classic example is this François Hollande scandal. As Anglo-Saxons, it's quite hard to swallow because you think, he's the president of France, you know, he should be setting an example. He's not trustworthy, he's a bad guy, you know, if he can cheat and lie and be a bad person in his personal life, then he could do that as the president. He's not a moral character. The French's outrage about this particular topic came from the fact that the media made a big deal out of it and that it was a private matter that wasn't kept private. That's where the outrage came from. They don't really mind that their president has a mistress and is going to visit her. It doesn't change anything about the man, his capability, and his capacity to be trustworthy, honest, and moral in the frame of his job. So I think when we see that and they're saying, you know, it's not a big deal, get over it, we think to ourselves like, why isn't it a big deal? Why don't you think that cheating is a big deal? And I think in general, I think a lot of French people have the capacity to be very sort of realistic and grounded and sort of open-minded on the topic of cheating. In Aziz Ansari's book, Modern Romance, he actually investigated, you know, with younger French people and asked them a lot of questions around their thoughts and feelings around infidelity. And, you know, a lot of these thematics came up, which is, you know, maybe it's too idealistic to expect to be just faithful to one person for an entire lifetime. Maybe it's not so natural. They even said things like, I think in the back of everyone's mind, at least in Paris, we do wonder whether staying monogamous, you know, forever is really a realistic possibility. And it's interesting in all of this, the French are actually the nation in the world the most likely to forgive a cheater. So again, that tolerance level is higher than what we may be used to. It was that French Institute of Public Opinion again who surveyed 39 countries, and they found that France were number one on the list, with 69% of French people saying that they could love someone again if they had an affair or if they cheated on them. So it may just be that the French culture aren't necessarily as harsh about infidelity as Anglo-Saxon countries, as, you know, where if a man cheats on his wife, he'll get shunned by the wife, by her family, by the community. He's a bad person. And what's quite interesting is that France has lower divorce rates than a lot of its European neighbours. It has lower divorce rates than the UK, Belgium, Sweden, Germany. There's definitely a cultural aspect that if cheating does happen within a French relationship, it's not absolutely compulsory that that is the end of that relationship, and it's a real reason why we should get divorced or at least have years and years and years of couples therapy. I'm not saying that anyone wants to be cheated on. French people are people, and cheating hurts, and you know, they don't want to be cheated on, of course. The French may be more realistic and open-minded about it all, but in general it's not something that anyone I know here living in France would actually want to go through, and all of my friends who are in committed and monogamous relationships are all hoping for the same thing. So that's it for this video, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic down below. I do read all of my comments, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please remember to hit that subscribe button so that we can see each other next week. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. A bientôt!